The sound hit the door only once. It wasn't a knock. It wasn't the creaking of an old house settling. It was one violent, deliberate slam from the other side, as if someone had been standing there in complete silence, waiting for the exact moment my brother leaned in to listen. Even now, years later, that single noise still wakes me up some nights. I was only 10 years old when it happened, and my older brother Luke was 12. Looking back, we were just two kids who had spent too many afternoons listening to neighborhood stories about a house everyone claimed was haunted. Every older kid had a different version. Some said strange lights appeared inside after midnight. Others insisted they heard footsteps when nobody lived there. There were stories about whispers, shadows, and broken windows, and people who walked onto the property only to leave running without explaining why. Whether any of those stories were true didn't matter. By the end of the summer, we'd convinced ourselves that we needed to find out. One September night, after our parents tucked us into bed and wished us good night, I quietly slipped out of my room and into Luke's. He already had everything ready. 2 hand-powered flashlights sat on his bed. They didn't use batteries. Every few seconds you had to squeeze a little trigger to make the light work. They were practical, but unbelievably loud. Every squeeze produced a sharp plastic clicking sound before the beam flickered back to life. I remember whispering, "Are you sure about this?" Luke grinned like he'd been waiting for me to ask. "Come on, we'll be back before anyone notices." His bedroom was on the first floor, so climbing out the window was easy. We eased ourselves into the cool night air and quietly closed the window behind us. The neighborhood was unusually still. A gentle breeze pushed dry leaves across the sidewalks, and the only sounds came from distant crickets and an occasional barking dog somewhere blocks away. The haunted house sat only 2 minutes from our home. As we walked, it slowly emerged from the darkness. Even before we reached it, something about it felt different from every other house on the street. The closer we got, the more isolated the place seemed. Although other homes stood in the neighborhood, this one somehow felt separated from everything around it. Its design looked decades older than the surrounding houses. Sections of rotting wood hung loose from the exterior walls. Several windows had already been shattered, and weeds had nearly swallowed the yard. Moonlight barely reached the property, leaving most of it buried in shadow. It looked exactly like the kind of place kids dared each other to enter. I wanted to turn around. Luke didn't. Instead of walking to the front, he led us around the side of the house toward the backyard. My stomach tightened with every step. The grass reached nearly to our knees, and branches scraped against the side of the building whenever the wind picked up. The back door was locked. For one brief moment, I actually felt relieved. "See," I whispered, "let's just go home." Luke ignored me completely. Lying in the grass was an old wooden plank. Before I could ask what he was doing, he picked it up and swung it into one of the already damaged windows. The crack echoed through the yard. I froze. He hit it again, and again. Glass finally gave way enough for him to reach inside, unlock the window, and force it open. "Come on." Everything inside me wanted to refuse, but I couldn't imagine standing alone outside while my brother disappeared into that house. So I climbed in after him. The first thing I noticed wasn't the darkness. It was the heat. Outside, the September night was comfortably cool, somewhere in the mid-70s. Inside felt completely different. The air wrapped around us like we had stepped into the middle of summer. It had to be close to 90 degrees. Neither of us said anything. We just kept squeezing the noisy triggers on our flashlights, filling the silence with constant clicking. The house was surprisingly empty. I expected spray paint, broken bottles, or signs that teenagers had been hanging around. Instead, everything looked strangely untouched. A few old pieces of furniture remained, dusty and forgotten, but there was almost nothing else. It honestly felt like nobody had been inside for years. We entered through what looked like a small downstairs den before making our way toward the main floor. Then, just as we reached the stairs, a floorboard cracked somewhere directly above us. Both of us jumped. The sound had been faint, but in that silence it felt impossibly loud. I grabbed Luke's sleeve. "Please, let's leave." He rolled his eyes. "This house is ancient," he whispered. "Old houses make noises." Maybe he believed that. I wanted to. Instead, I stopped squeezing my flashlight. The clicking suddenly seemed much louder than before, and I didn't want whatever might be upstairs to hear us. "You should stop yours too," I whispered. Luke looked back at me like I'd said something ridiculous. "That's stupid." He kept cranking the flashlight as we stood there listening. For several long seconds, nothing happened. Then another floorboard cracked. This time it was unmistakably above us. Not beside us. Not somewhere far away. Right overhead. Luke hesitated for only a second before starting up the staircase. I didn't move. Every instinct I had screamed that we needed to run. But the thought of standing alone in that house terrified me even more. So I followed him. Each step up the staircase seemed louder than the last. The old wood groaned beneath our feet, and the stale air somehow felt even hotter on the second floor. Shadows stretched across the hallway whenever Luke's flashlight beam bounced against the walls. At the end of the hall stood a closed door. I immediately realized it was directly above the room where we'd first heard the noises. "Don't open it," I whispered. He didn't answer. Instead, he slowly walked toward the door. His flashlight continued clicking rhythmically as he reached for the knob. Then, unexpectedly, he stopped. His hand froze inches away. Without saying a word, he leaned forward until one side of his face rested against the door. He was listening. The flashlight kept clicking. I could hear both of us breathing. Nothing else. Seconds passed. The silence became almost unbearable. I remember staring at the door, waiting for something, anything. Then everything exploded at once. A single massive bang slammed into the opposite side of the door. Not beside it. Not somewhere inside the house. Directly against the wood, only inches from my brother's face. The impact threw Luke backward into the wall. He cried out, grabbing the side of his head as though the noise itself had hurt him. Our flashlights slipped from our hands. Neither of us stopped to pick them up. Pure panic took over. We ran. I don't remember making the decision. My legs simply moved before my mind caught up. Luke was already racing down the hallway, and I stayed so close behind him that I nearly ran into his back several times. The staircase seemed twice as long as before. Every step thundered beneath our feet. I kept expecting to hear something chasing us. Another door opening. More footsteps. Anything. But behind us, there was only the sound of our own breathing and the echo of our shoes crashing through the empty house. We burst through the downstairs, scrambled out the broken window we'd entered through, and sprinted across the backyard without looking back once. Neither of us spoke during the run home. By the time we climbed back through Luke's bedroom window, we were making far too much noise to avoid being caught. Our parents came into the room almost immediately. They demanded to know where we'd been. Out of breath and still shaking, we told them everything. We explained sneaking out, the abandoned house, the upstairs room, the bang against the door. They weren't interested in ghost stories. As far as they were concerned, 2 kids had climbed into an abandoned building after bedtime. That was enough. We were grounded for an entire week. At the time, that punishment felt unfair. Now, looking back, it was probably the least frightening part of the entire experience. Life slowly returned to normal over the next couple of days. School started again. Luke and I stopped talking about the house. Neither of us suggested going back. Then, 2 nights later, something happened that has stayed with me longer than anything inside that building. I woke sometime during the night. At first, I couldn't understand what had disturbed me. Then I heard it. Click, click, click. A small mechanical sound coming from outside my bedroom window. I knew that sound instantly. There was no mistaking it. It was identical to the trigger on our hand-powered flashlights. For several seconds, I lay completely still. The room was dark except for a faint glow slipping through the small gap in my partially open blinds. Whoever, or whatever, was outside seemed to be creating brief flashes of light, just enough for thin beams to leak into my room between each click of that familiar mechanism. Click. A pause. Click. Every muscle in my body locked. I kept telling myself there had to be a logical explanation. Maybe another kid owned the same kind of flashlight. Maybe someone was walking through the neighborhood. But why would they be standing outside my bedroom window in the middle of the night? The clicking continued. Slow, patient, almost deliberate. I finally forced myself out of bed. Each step across the floor felt heavier than the last. I reached the window, my heart pounding so loudly it seemed impossible that whoever was outside couldn't hear it. Very carefully, I pulled one corner of the blind aside. The clicking stopped. Instantly. Outside there was nothing. No flashlight. No person. No movement. Just complete darkness stretching across the yard. I stood there for what felt like forever, staring into the blackness, waiting for my eyes to adjust. Nothing appeared. Eventually, I climbed back into bed, although I don't remember falling asleep again. When morning came, the memory already felt strangely distant, almost dreamlike. The more I thought about it, the harder it became to convince myself it had really happened. Maybe I'd imagined the sound. Maybe I'd been half asleep. Maybe the flashes of light had never existed at all. I've wanted to believe that explanation for years. It's certainly easier than believing someone stood outside my bedroom window in the middle of the night, squeezing the trigger of a flashlight identical to the one we abandoned inside that house. To this day,